In March 1998, they released a collection of 3 Nancy Drew Files books. They are The Wrong Chemistry, Out of Bounds, and Flirting with Danger. Here are my reviews for all 3 books in this collector's edition.
Nancy's in college again in this book. She spends quite a few mysteries posing as a college student in this series, I've noticed. She probably has a semester of credits built up at this point.
Argo Font Book Review, Argo Font Book Review.
Dean Jarvis has asked Nancy to investigate the theft of CLT. That's a rare chemical the government gives to Professor Mazik for top-secret experiments. The CLT has been stolen twice now, and we need to catch the thief before the government finds out, and, I don't know, before they send a professional to solve the crime. Nancy goes to the lab. The security here is pretty awful, considering they've got top-secret government chemicals. The guard lets Nancy in without even bothering to look at her, because he's too busy reading a magazine. What bad security. I mean, I'm sure that he was reading Sassy Detective magazine, but still, guard man, do your job. It turns out that CLT is a growth hormone. Professor Mazik shows off his experiments. He's created a giant fish, along with rodents of unusual size. The professor's skittish assistant shows up and accidentally causes an explosion by dropping zinc into hydrochloric acid. That's not what happens when you mix those chemicals together in real life, but who cares? It's an excuse to have a cool book title and an explosion cover. Nancy runs into a rogue environmentalist group called Protect Our Environment, POE. The group is run by Karen Lewis, the student, and Philip Bangs, the celebrity environmentalist. They are preparing a protest where they pull out guns and pretend to kill people. That's a bad plan, which is sure to backfire, but the college kids aren't smart enough to realize that. For the sake of dramatic tension, Nancy's boyfriend Ned hates POE with a passion. He acts like the group is an evil cult and he yells at Nancy for talking about them. When his friend Angela decides to join, Ned goes overboard in lecturing her to stay away. But maybe he's got a point, because once Angela joins, she completely disappears. Yeah, she disappears, nobody knows where she went. POE makes up an obviously fake story to explain why she's gone. Nancy kind of investigates it, but not really, because she doesn't like Ned focusing on other girls. Both Professor Mazik and his assistant are suspicious because they have huge debts to pay. Maybe they were victims of the college gambling ring in Book 8. Actually, I'm pretty sure that this book's author is the same person who wrote Book 8, because most of the characters from that book reappear here. Also, there's another naked Nancy death scene. She tries to get a robe from her closet after taking a shower when the doorknob explodes and the door falls on her. I don't know why Nancy had to be naked for that. Clothed people use doorknobs too. Nancy calls the dean for a progress report, and she has to go through 5 different secretaries before she can reach him. Wow, 5 secretaries? That must be the worst call center ever. When Nancy gets through, she hears suspicious clicks on the line, almost like the culprit is listening in, but she ignores them and starts a top-secret conversation about CLT. Specifically, Nancy says she's going to guard CLT by hiding in the closet where she can't see anything, because that way she can jump out and maybe surprise the culprit. It's not really the best plan ever there, Nancy. Of course, it's revealed the culprit was listening in on the plan the entire time, so the culprit is easily able to steal the CLT, lock Nancy in the closet, and scare her with a fire. She's not having good luck with closets today. Nancy's luck turns around when she discovers an abandoned elevator leading to a series of hidden tunnels built under the school. She explores one and the spooky factor gets turned up big time when rats show up just as her flashlight dies. She never enters the tunnels again, I wouldn't either, but she learns that's the culprit's escape route. Nancy realizes the culprit is stealing information about security arrangements from the dean's computer. The culprit gets the info from the computer. She talks to the dean about this, and he is shocked. His secretary couldn't steal from the computer. The secretary is so loyal. Okay, maybe that's true, but what about the other 4 secretaries from earlier? Continuity! Anyway, Karen's the culprit here. Under the guise of a student volunteer, she was stealing the dean's info for POE. But Karen can't be the culprit, because earlier she helped take care of a sick dog, and culprits aren't that nice. So Nancy's flabbergasted and flummoxed. Nancy infiltrates a POE meeting, which was a cool scene. In their basement, she finds Ned and Angela tied up. It's revealed that Bangs is the mastermind behind everything. Karen was just his unwitting pawn. Bangs' plan was to steal all of the CLT growth hormone and use it to create giant bacteria. That way he could hold the world hostage with super strong diseases. I think I saw that as a joke on Captain Planet once. Just when Bangs is about to shoot Nancy, Karen comes in and saves her. Yep, Karen saves dogs and Nancy. There's a big chase sequence as Bangs tries to steal the CLT and get it off campus, and Nancy is saved by the number one suspect from her previous mystery. Thanks, Mike. The end. Post-book follow-up. Once again, I was able to predict the culprit. I knew Bangs would be the culprit because there's a big scene where he shows up and everybody stops to focus on him for a while, and there would be no reason to give him that much attention if he wasn't going to be important at the end. Other than that, I like this book. It was neat seeing all the characters from Book 8 again, even if I've forgotten all of them by now, and there were neat one-chapter episodes like Nancy at the POE meeting and a visit to the police. Other reviewers disliked this book because of the one-chapter episodes that I liked. The reviewers complained that not much happens in terms of overarching story, and there are several complaints that Ned is annoying and not as good as Bess and George. And now, I feel conflicted as a reviewer. Last book, I complained that I didn't like the one-chapter episodes because they weren't tied to the main plot, but in this book, I like them. Am I inconsistent? I think the difference is that, well, the episodes in this book were more interesting, so I was more inclined to overlook problems with them. Take the chapter of Nancy exploring the hidden passageways. That was really suspenseful and interesting, but it was irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, because the passageways never get explored or mentioned again. I'd say the episode was interesting, overrides my instinct to get rid of the irrelevant episodes in this case. Overall, I liked the book, maybe not as much as the original book, but I still liked it. I would probably rewrite some of the Ned stuff. He went a little overboard in this book, yeah. And I would streamline one or two things, but other than that, I approve. It was good. I give Nancy Drew Files number 42, The Wrong Chemistry, an 8 out of 10. This book takes place at Bedford High, making it a kind of sequel to Secrets Can Kill. I say kind of because none of the characters from that book reappear. Daryl Gray gets mentioned a few times as the evil criminal that Nancy busted. Poor Daryl. He makes out with Nancy, and all he gets out of it is a bad reputation.
Argo Font Book Review, Argo Font Book Review.
As you can tell from the title, this is a football book. Bess is dating a high school football player named Bill. A player named Lonnie is making moves on George. The main player on the team is quarterback Rob Matthews. He's dating head cheerleader Cynthia Tyler because apparently it's a high school rule for quarterbacks to date cheerleaders. Rob takes a bad hit in the game and his head smashes against the ground. He tries to brush it off like, "Come on, coach, I can still play. I didn't get any brain damage from that hit. All I did was forget long division, and that stuff's not useful anyway." Coach is, not very responsible, so he lets Rob back into the game with a minute left. Rob scores the winning touchdown, and everybody goes to a restaurant named Touchdown to celebrate. Cynthia works there as a waitress, so I can only assume they're going to get her employee discount. Only Pete the manager is on the warpath. He starts shouting that someone stole money from the cash registers, and he fires Cynthia on the spot. No employee discount for her. At dinner, Rob feels dizzy and collapses. Either he's really in love with Cynthia, or that football injury is worse than it seems. They rush him to the hospital, where the doctors confirm he has a concussion. Rob runs away from the hospital before they can do any tests. Nancy warns Coach that Rob is in danger, but Coach just laughs it off like, "I'll take him out of the game if you get a doctor's note saying his health is in jeopardy." "Oh wait, you can't! He ran away before the doctor showed up!" Oh, I should be a stand-up comedian if this coaching gig doesn't work out. Nancy goes undercover as Nancy Edwards to see who's robbing the restaurant. The restaurant appears to only have 3 employees. Pete is the grumpy manager, Edgar is everybody's best friend, and Mark is the laid-back assistant manager. Mark is suspicious because when Rob passed out, Nancy saw Mark reaching into Rob's bag. Nancy doesn't confront Mark about this because reasons. The culprit breaks into Nancy's car to steal $400 from Rob's bag, and Lonnie beats up a teammate for no reason. At work, Pete gets a disturbing letter. Nancy makes up an excuse to leave work and she follows Pete. Pete goes to a gym where he meets a suspicious guy named Doc. They talk about how somebody's onto them and the plan is falling apart. More importantly though, the receptionist at the gym is hot and he asks Nancy out on a date. Score! She gets his phone number, because you never know when you might need to call a hot gym guy, am I right? More money is stolen from the restaurant. Pete tries to blame Edgar, but when Pete is yelling, he accidentally drops an envelope full of the stolen cash. Wow, talk about an incompetent criminal. Somebody stole a bunch of money. Please ignore the suspicious wad of money in my pocket. That's totally different money. Don't question me, you're fired. Nancy makes an excuse to leave work again, and she follows Pete. He puts the money in a post office box and goes home. Nancy sees Edgar drop off a letter at Pete's house. She steals it, and oh no, it's an anonymous blackmail note! So that's why Pete is robbing his own restaurant. He is paying off a blackmailer. Also, Nancy, Pete, and Edgar were all working 15 minutes ago. Now they're all at Pete's house at the same time. Who's running the restaurant right now? Nancy tries to get info from the doctor, who won't say anything besides the fact that Rob's liver is in bad shape. At the next football game, the guys are extremely violent and angry. Nancy tells all of this to Hot Gym Guy, who confirms the football players are on steroids. That's bad. Nancy tries warning Coach, but he doesn't care. Again, this is not a responsible coach. At the restaurant, Pete compliments all the football players. He gives them free goodie bags and winks openly. That's pretty blatant there, Pete. Considering this and the cash he stole earlier, I can only guess he's trying to get caught. Nancy intercepts a goodie bag, and sure enough, it's filled with steroids. Pete is giving steroids to the football players. So Nancy goes to the police, and no. Nancy follows up on the Edgar angle, because yeah, let's chase after the least likely suspect. That's what good detectives do. As it turns out, Edgar was delivering messages for Mark. He had no idea they were blackmail letters. He thought they were work schedules. Nancy sends everybody a letter telling them to meet at the football field. They all do, and helpfully they all chat about their various crimes. Doc tries to shoot Nancy, but her friends jump out and a brawl breaks out. But fortunately for our heroes, the steroid-laced athletes decide to run away instead of fighting. Lucky break there. The criminals are arrested, Edgar is promoted, the football team wins the championship, and Rob gets redeemed because he's on the cover of the book. The end. Post-book follow-up. I kinda like this book. I didn't like recapping the book. I thought my recap was difficult to write and not very funny, but whatever. The book was good, though, even if my recap wasn't. The undercover waitress storyline was neat, even if it was unrealistic how Nancy's able to make a weak excuse to leave work twice in a row. The high school football story was also interesting, although I have to question why we never saw Walt Hogan, the football captain from Secrets Can Kill. He gets mentioned, but not seen. Hey, is this book the reason why they made the football guy a steroid abuser in the first Nancy Drew game? This book is about his teammates taking steroids. Coincidence? I saw a complaint that the steroid mystery is too easy, and yeah, if you think about it, you can easily guess what's going on. Buff athletes, prone to erratic fits of rage, refusing to see real doctors. Doc is talking about supplying something. The clues are there and blatant. The restaurant mystery is more balanced, with each characters having 1 to 2 things that make them suspicious. Overall, the book is good. It fits the series perfectly well. I give Nancy Drew Files number 45 out of bounds a 7 out of 10. Nancy Drew is flirting with danger. I prefer this to the books where she flirts with every single guy that moves.
Argo Font Book Review, Argo Font Book Review.
Nancy and Ned are in Beverly Hills, visiting Ned's school buddy, Josh Klein. I wish my school buddies invited me on free vacations. Josh's sister Rachel is graduating high school today. She gets into a suspicious-sounding argument with her boyfriend over the phone, and she disappears without a trace. We meet the suspects. We meet Rachel's friends. Beth Hanford is a scared girl who's clearly hiding something. She says Rachel's boyfriend is Dennis Harper, a bad boy with a punk haircut who doesn't play by the rules. Rachel's ex-boyfriend Mike claims he saw Rachel in school earlier, but she left without saying anything. Rachel's rival Jessica thinks Rachel and Dennis ran away together to get married or something. During high school graduation, though, get real. Rachel's car is found in the school parking lot with the keys still inside. They search the part of the school where Rachel is seen and, just kidding. They go to a post-graduation swimsuit party, where Nancy gets a threatening message telling her to drop the case. It's signed, The Cats. Dennis works at an electronics store, so Nancy goes there in hopes of talking to him. Turns out the store's owner, Ralph Lindenbaum, just fired Dennis for stealing, and the only contact information Ralph has for Dennis is a phone number written in illegible handwriting. You know, businesses are supposed to have verified contact information on their employees, not just random scraps of paper. Nancy, Ned, and Josh search Rachel's room, and they go to another pool party. I guess they have daily pool parties in Beverly Hills. Nancy hears someone behind her, and she assumes she's gonna get some romance time with Ned, when she gets pushed over the railing and falls 30 feet into the pool below. Major props to this book for portraying the scene accurately, instead of pretending a long fall into water isn't dangerous. Nancy smashes through the 7 feet of water in seconds, and she almost blacks out when her shoulder hits the concrete bottom of the pool. Nobody tries to stop the culprit from escaping, though, because they're too busy partying. Nice people. Someone breaks into the house and searches Rachel's room. The police put Lieutenant Heller in charge of the case, but he won't be of much help. His department is overwhelmed with over a dozen missing teenager cases right now. I'm giving this the Best Drop Subplot Award because we never hear about this epidemic of kidnapped teenagers ever again. He also mentions a rash of thefts in the neighborhood. The good news is Heller knows Nancy Drew by reputation, so he gives her Dennis's address and tells her she can investigate on her own. The culprit almost runs Nancy over at Josh's work. Beth calls saying she's got important information on the mystery, but when Nancy goes to meet Beth, Jessica bullies her into keeping quiet. Jessica accidentally drops a piece of paper which says there's a party at the Cat Club that night. Fortunately for our heroes, Jessica wrote the address of the club on this note to herself, even though she already knows where it is. Rachel calls home, but she gets interrupted before she can say anything. At Dennis's apartment, Nancy finds a hidden note from Rachel. Instead of saying who the culprit is, Rachel just wrote a generic message like, "I'm in danger, please help me." Rachel, if you want someone to help, you're gonna have to be more specific. Nancy and Ned break into the Cat Club during the party, because we've already seen that everyone in this town is super distracted by parties. Nancy overhears the culprits plotting. It turns out all of the suspects are culprits. Ralph is the ringleader, since he's the only one who's over 20. Beth sees Nancy, but she purposely doesn't tell the others. Nancy and Ned go home, where they leave a message for Heller. That's when Rachel stumbles inside and explains everything. She and her friends call themselves the Cats. One day, they pretended to rob Ralph's store as a prank, since some of them work there. Ralph got security footage of them robbing the store, and he's used it to blackmail them into committing real robberies. They steal electronics, and he sells them at his store. Dennis and Rachel disappeared on purpose in order to escape the crime ring, but they were eventually caught and kidnapped by the crooks. Rachel managed to escape, but Dennis is still there. So our heroes return to the Cat Club. They free Dennis, but the culprits catch them on the way out. Mike turns on the other culprits, and everyone attacks the bad guys at once. The culprits' guns are knocked away, and they lose the 6-on-2 fist fight. Everyone gets arrested. Dennis and Rachel get off easy because they were coerced into breaking the law. I thought Beth and Mike would get off easy too, since they helped Nancy, but no.
jail time for them. The end. Post-book follow-up. Ned is good in this book, always helping and supporting Nancy while letting her take the lead. This is opposed to other books where he's the strong man who takes over her cases, or the wimp who spends all his time trying to convince Nancy to drop the case. They actually had some cute scenes together, especially the one of them kissing in the pool. They actually felt like a happy couple on vacation. It was good to see Nancy and Ned as a nice couple. I find it interesting that this book is Ned romance heavy, because the next 3 books are the Summer of Love trilogy, where Nancy gets a hot Russian boyfriend. Sorry, Ned. In my recap, I didn't mention the second major culprit, Peter. Peter is the one who tried to kill Nancy twice. Peter works at a punk bar that Dennis likes to visit. Nancy spends a chapter and a half searching there, but finds nothing. It was kind of pointless. Similarly, there are multiple scenes of Nancy talking to Rachel's parents and Josh, which don't further the story in any way, but I'm willing to give them a pass because they crank up the dramatic tension. Overall, it's a good book. I think it made things more interesting that Rachel was kidnapped partway through the book instead of being kidnapped at the beginning. I think the book did a good job with the everyone is guilty setup, with one problem: half of the characters switched to using their last names during the culprit reveal. No, why would you do that? If she's called Beth in the first 2/3 of the book, don't start calling her Hanford during the culprit reveal. That just confuses people. I had to go back and check who people were because they all had new names at the most critical scene. I give Nancy Drew Files number 47, Flirting with Danger, an 8 out of 10.